From the Stream Center in Abilene, Texas, the home of KTAB and KRBC, this is Cross-Examine on BigCountryHomepage.com.
And we're joined by John Young, former attorney for Billie Dunn. And again, John, we're having you on the podcast, and we're looking at 15 years ago. Hailey Dunn went missing, reported missing, and we want to ask you, when was your involvement in this case? When did you come on in this case?
First of all, Victor, it's great to be back with you. It's good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Your team, or the team. I became involved with Billie sometime before Hailey's disappearance. She was charged with some minor stuff there in Colorado City, misdemeanor things. And in the course of that representation, the disappearance occurred. And, she was just so overwhelmed that I agreed to stay on and try to help her. And then pretty soon it became a relationship where I knew she needed help, and she knew she needed help, and we stayed on the case, frankly, until it was done.
So you got involved after she was charged, like you said, with some misdemeanor things, and Manny.
And I mean minor misdemeanor
things.
Number
18.
It was the misdemeanor marijuana, and I believe that was all at the time.
And this was before Hailey went missing.
Yes.
So when, during the investigation, did Billie approach you about Hailey? Because I know Billie was actually arrested pretty soon after Hailey was reported missing on some more misdemeanor charges, including possibly lying to police about the whereabouts of Shawn Adkins. So was it before or after that arrest that she had gotten you involved with Hailey's disappearance?
It would have been about the same time.
Okay.
Those charges that you refer to were subsequent to the initial representation, but were charges that I worked with on. And she was arrested on those charges. She was never actually charged with those things, and that was a big deal at the time. Well, she wasn't truthful with the police, and that is what it is. When someone's in love or believes they're in love, or when somebody cares for someone immensely, you don't always make the right choices, and she didn't in that case, and she recognized.
Well, and that was a big thing when Hailey first went missing. Billie was standing by Shawn, and they were both pleading to the public to help bring Hailey home. And this was before she maybe even an inkling that maybe Shawn may or may not have been involved.
Well, Victor, look, that guy is a manipulative and very convincing fella. And as I said a moment ago, Billie thought she was in love. I mean, she believed in Shawn. She believed in what he was telling her. Hardworking guy. These are not people that are affluent and that go to the country club to meet potential mates. I mean, these are people that are hardworking. 7 to 5 or 7 to 8. Working folks. And Billie met Shawn. He was working. She was. It just was a relationship that she believed in. And slowly over time, she began to ask questions, and she and I talked several times about what was, where was Shawn, what was happening, what was going on. I can't get into the content of those conversations, but I can tell you it evolved such that she became very concerned.
So she did talk to you then a lot about Shawn and their relationship.
I don't know how you define a lot, but yes, we did talk about it. I will tell you how it ended. Or one of the. Billie moved away at some point, and it's reported that as she tried to distance herself from Shawn, she comes home from work one day, and he's sitting in her apartment in Austin in the dark, and scared her. I mean, just enormously. And
she came home. She didn't know he was there.
No. I'm not even sure still to this day how he got in. I wasn't. She hadn't given him a key. She hadn't had any contact with him in some time. So. That was what was reported at the time, and she was not injured. Apparently, he left, but it went from believing that she was entirely in love or entirely smitten with this guy to trying to protect him. Saying no, he's not here. He was in the house, but apparently, to a point where she was afraid of him. Not sure what he would do.
Yeah, and from my research, I actually have found that narrative with her before. Apparently, around a year before Hailey went missing, there are 911 calls. I don't know if we have them. Do we have them, Victory?
We don't have them on this
Okay.
one, but
Billie called 911 to report that Shawn was threatening to hurt her and Hailey and that she was very afraid of him. And this was probably in February of the year that Hailey went missing. She went missing in December.
And that's an interesting thing. I'd forgotten about those 911s, but she had some of the symptoms or some of the characteristics of a classic battered spouse or battered significant other, whatever. And too often in this society, we want to blame the person that's getting beat, and that just seems wrong to me. But that's kind of what was. She wasn't getting the benefit of that perception. She wasn't getting the benefit of realizing that she was probably a little bit scared of him, and I know she was a little bit scared of him, and so it evolved from there.
I've got an old soundbite with Billie, Manny. It is number 4, and it's really the first time that she doubts Shawn's involvement in this case. And if Manny can play that out, we can.
First time publicly.
Publicly that she tells the media. 4? Yeah, number 4. She tells the media that this is the first she starts to doubt him. Let's see if we can pull that up. This was out, I believe, in front of her house.
And that was an evolving
I
emotion.
think this is it.
At the beginning, she did countless interviews with the public and the media, right?
There it is.
Yeah.
One second, let me give some audio to that.
It hurt me or the kids, but
Well, while we're waiting on that, sorry, I don't know if we want to get into this right now, but I feel like we have to discuss the fact that the Dunns, Billie specifically, and also Shawn were involved in like a drug lifestyle. I know that's what a lot of her misdemeanor charges stemmed from. And I also know she's on the record saying that the night Hailey went missing, not the day she was reported missing. Billie reported her missing on the 28th, but on the 27th, Billie's on the record saying that she and Shawn were buying drugs in Snyder. And so do you have any insight as to how that lifestyle or culture might have affected their family life or might have affected Hailey or just...
Yeah, sure. I understand what you're getting at. And the question is valid, and it is a reasonable question based upon the circumstances. What I can tell you is this. I know that she was charged with possession of marijuana. I know that in the course of this investigation, and it was as you know, substantial investigation, there was never any evidence of, big drug lifestyle. There was not. I mean, that would have been, the FBI. Well, first of all, the Texas Rangers would have, been all over that. I know the Rangers that worked this case. They are top-notch folks, and Scott Stevenson particularly. I think he's a captain in Lubbock now. One of the best investigators, one of the best law enforcement folks I've ever met. And not just because my son dated his daughter back in high school, but because I believe in him and he's a good guy and he does it right. But there was no evidence of that. The other thing I can tell you for certain, and I've represented a lot of people charged with a lot of dope.
Yeah.
In state and federal court, I never saw any indication of her using anything.
Were you aware that she failed a polygraph because she was under the influence of narcotics?
That is what they say. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Allegedly, yeah.
Yeah, and look, I don't know if you're ever taking a polygraph or not, but
No, I heard they are very finicky though.
yeah,
sometimes.
well, polygraphs can be thrown off by twitching in the wrong way, and so I'm not saying I believe in them. I think that they
Yeah,
provide
that's just the reasoning that I found in my research on the record. They say that Billie failed. Well, they stopped conducting the polygraph because they believed she was under the influence of narcotics.
And I know that's what they believed, and again, I can't answer what happened that day. I don't know. What I do know is I never saw any evidence of it.
I want to take us back to that soundbite we were trying to get to. This is the first time publicly, like you said, John,
Right.
that she doubts or that she's having some doubt about Shawn Adkins.
The audience will be able to hear this. You guys may not be able to hear it.
Adkins has sought the help of an attorney and has stopped cooperating with police.
I never would have thought that he could hurt me or the kids, but now I just don't know.
Adkins has sought the help of an attorney and has stopped cooperating with police.
I never would have thought that he
It
could
was a quick
hurt me or
soundbite.
the
She's
kids,
basically
but
saying, well, I
now
have it
I
in
just
front of me.
don't know.
She goes, I
Atkins
never
is-
would have thought that he could hurt me or my kids, but now I don't know. And she's standing out in front of her house talking to media. When I guess Shawn Adkins is named as a suspect.
Victor, that is part of the evolution of her understanding of this case. Imagine being in love with somebody or believing you're in love with somebody and perhaps being the victim of some abuse in that relationship. So the whole battered, the whole abused spouse or abused partner syndrome, where you believe you're at fault, you believe that it's something that you can do different to make this relationship right. You're always apologizing to the batterer. Going from that to the realization that, wait a minute, folks in authority are saying that he might have done something now, and it works on it's I don't know, but it has to work on your mind about, oh, wait a minute, that starts to chip away, and at some point I think she evolved into the realization that it very likely could have been Shawn.
As we know, Shawn was the last one to see her, apparently.
Allegedly. The last confirmed sighting of Hailey alive for sure was by her brother, December 26th, which is the night before she allegedly went missing. He saw her at their home, Billie's home, playing video games.
And we're going to hear from Shawn right now in clip number 3, were Hailey's last words to Shawn Adkins, apparently on the 27th, the day before she went missing.
Well, she allegedly went missing on the 27th.
On the 27th. She was reported missing on the 28th.
Yes, but about 3 p.m. on the 27th is when Shawn said, and I don't know if this is in person. I think it was in person.
It is in person.
It was in person around 3 p.m. She told him, I'm going to my dad's and then a friend's, tell my mom.
And here is the from Shawn's own words in clip number 3.
This is a soundbite?
Soundbite.
Shawn,
It's Hailey's
I'm
last
gonna go by my
words
dad's,
to
and then I'm
Shawn,
gonna stay
according
out with
to
my
Shawn.
friend Mary Beth.
And Shawn's
Please
the
tell my
only one
mom.
that's ever been able
Told
to
me,
verify this.
Shawn, I'm gonna go by my dad's, and then I'm gonna stay tonight with my friend Mary Beth. Please tell my mom. Told me.
She basically says, she told me, Shawn, I'm going to my dad's, then I'm going to stay with my friend Mary Beth. Please tell my mom.
And later, Billie says that conversation didn't happen. Is that
Well,
did I hear you all?
In clip number 2, and I have a note on this. Clip number 2, Manny, if you can get to clip number 2, and play that for the audience, and I'll let our guests know what she says here.
I was kind of upset
because it's very
that
hard to
Hailey
understand what she
hadn't called
says.
me and confirmed that Shawn did let me know she was staying the night with her friend.
Billie says she's disappointed with the way law enforcement has handled the investigation.
I do not understand why they seem to have disregarded all of the witnesses who have come forward to say they saw Hailey. I also don't understand law enforcement's reluctance to publicly name any other persons of interest. I was kind of upset that Hailey hadn't called me, confirmed that Shawn did let me know she was staying the night with her friend.
Billie says she's disappointed with the way law enforcement has handled the investigation.
I do not understand why they seem
In
to have
this particular
disregarded all of the
soundbite,
witnesses
again, I'm
who have
reading
come
these
forward
again
to say they
because
saw Hailey.
we don't have a studio
also
audio
don't
here, but Billie Dunn says, I was kind of upset that Hailey hadn't called me to confirm that Shawn did tell me that she was staying the night with her friend. Now, I have a note here because it's hard to understand in the soundbite. Is she saying that Shawn did tell me or didn't tell me that she was staying the night with her friend? And there's some things that she talks about later on in that soundbite that we'll have to unpack as well, because in that same soundbite, then she says, I don't understand why they seem to have disregarded, talking about investigators, disregarded all of the witnesses who have come forward to say they saw Hailey. I also don't understand law enforcement's reluctance to publicly name another person of interest in this case. So I want to start with the very first with the very first part of this. Did did Shawn tell Billie what Hailey's plans were that night?
I do not know the answer to that.
And it's hard to understand. I don't understand in the soundbite
I've
that
seen
you say
nothing
didn't.
suggesting a discrepancy.
I think you're right. My understanding is that she did not know. That's why that starts off with, that quote starts off with, I was a little upset that she hadn't called me. Billie really didn't have much of an idea. I mean, she might have had some idea, but she didn't have anything. She was uncomfortable. She's said more than once, and I think that was the way I hear that, the way I read that, Victor, is that she's uncomfortable or upset because he has not told her that the child was spending the night with a friend. And we really don't know anything until the next day, I guess, when her brother gets home and she's not there.
Her brother.
What did you say about her brother?
So her brother on the 26th at night went to a friend's house. Said I saw Hailey. Hailey's brother David Dunn. Said he was a little bit older. He was like 18, but he went to a friend's house the night of the 26th. Left her in the living room playing video games. And I know investigators have even looked into the timeline so hard that they were able to determine, okay, Hailey was playing this game and she had this level of proficiency at it. So judging by the level that she paused the game at or ended on, she would have been playing it for about this long. I think they determined she was maybe playing video games till about midnight, from like 9 p.m. to midnight.
In her room or somewhere in the house?
See, I've actually seen discrepancies about that. I saw that she was playing video games in David's room and then later in the living room.
David is the brother?
David is the brother. And people online were even like, oh, why would she move from the brother's room to the living room? I don't know if we ever know where she was playing video games, but it's pretty known that that's what she was doing. And then the 27th, the morning of, Billie Dunn leaves to go to work. She says that she opens the door and looks in, and she cannot confirm or deny if she actually saw Hailey in there. She was just doing probably the, checking on my kids before I go to the work, little peek in the room.
So Billie on the 27th opens Hailey's door to her room, peeks in.
Yeah.
She may or may not be there.
May or may not is what I've been able to determine.
But Billie thinks, oh, she's there. Yeah. Everything's okay. Shuts the door.
And then goes to work.
By the way, school's out, right?
Yes. It's Christmas break. It's December 27th.
And I can tell you with certainty she believed Hailey was in that bed. She said, I checked on her before I went. Now, I think over time she's kind of gotten to where she even questions herself. She's been under the gun for a long time. And maybe rightfully so. I'm not here to attack law enforcement or the job they did. Maybe rightfully so. I'm just saying she's become a bit gun shy over time. So I'm not sure that she didn't say, she couldn't say with certainty, but she believes that Hailey was in the bed.
And by the way, you were here when I called you. One of the first things you said was, well, hey, I got to talk to Billie. Yeah. First of all, to try to maybe get her on the podcast. And then also permission almost to for you to be here.
Well, Victor, Billie and I have, as I do with many former clients, have stayed in touch over the years. We often talk at holidays or when something's going on in her world. And I wasn't comfortable appearing here without her at least lack of objection. As it was, she was okay with me. Encouraged me to come in and to visit with y'all. She has tried very, very hard to move on with her life. She's tried very hard to. She spent a lot of time building up the Hope for Hailey group and with an effort to try to nurture and help other families that had gone through the loss of a child. And I think she's maybe, and I understand, you just plain get tired, of trying to live that life for somebody. And so she's gone on, it's not an easy life. She's nursing, I think, an LVN, working, at nights, and it's not an easy thing, but she's doing that, and I think she's doing well. And so, yes, I talked to her, and she had no objection to my visiting with y'all, and she just didn't want to be on the podcast herself.
And it's been several years since she has been as open and willing to do interviews as she was when the investigation initially started. I'm sure probably because she does want to move on with her life.
Yeah. That, and she's taking some shots. I mean, I'll tell you, the absolute best, and not present company accepted, of course. interviews and support that Billie had was Nancy Grace. Nancy Grace had the show. This was the subject of her show twice. We appeared on both of those shows. She was supportive and helpful and really encouraging of Billie. And I think that Billie got to where she kind of used the media, that's a bad term, was glad to be able to respond to some of these things that were negative, and the media coverage gave her a chance to do that. And Nancy Grace sort of made that an okay thing. I mean, Nancy or Miss Grace steps up for victims, and I don't know that she thought Billie was a victim, but maybe being victimized at some points. People can be hateful. You know that. You're in the public eye. People can be hateful. And when they get hankering to go after somebody, they certainly can. And I think they did. Some of the folks that were supportive at one point went after her pretty hard in social media.
Which brings me to a soundbite we have with you back in 2011. It's clip number 5, Manny. If we can.
Now, Victor, if I got to listen to myself, I don't know about that.
Well, you definitely have to see yourself. And I think you were here in our studios, and we asked you about Shawn Adkins actually lawyering up before he was charged. This was before he was charged,
right?
And he lawyered up and stopped cooperating with investigators. Let's see if we can pull that.
Surprise in this case is not that Mr. Adkins hired a lawyer; it's that he didn't hire a lawyer sooner.
Local defense attorney John Young says no.
Even if you're not hiring a lawyer to defend you from anything, you hire a lawyer to advise you of your rights, to make sure you understand and follow the procedures in the course of an investigation. It's just the rhetoric has gotten completely out of control, almost to the point that it has apparently hindered the investigation somewhat.
So. And
the biggest surprise in this case is not
before the soundbite, the rhetoric that came about this,
sure.
and one of the reasons Billie didn't want to do this today because of that puts her in the target again.
You bet it does, and there's a whole lot of people that are supportive and kind and understanding. You guys are all in the public eye, whether it's behind the camera or in front of the camera, wherever you are, whether you're writing the news or delivering the news. And that you've experienced, I suspect, that people can be just plain mean sometimes. And, another podcast, another day, we can talk about, why that is, and people can sit behind a computer and type anything and not have to ever look you in the eye. But it was a tough time. And the biggest, I think I said this at the time, I'm not positive, but the thing I was most surprised by is that he waited so long to get a lawyer.
So when did he... I guess, get a lawyer? Do you know?
I do not recall.
Was it, so a big question that I have for you, and this may be more consulting your legal expertise and less
Sure.
your personal involvement, because you were not Shawn's attorney. Were you aware of all the pornography that was found, not directly connected to Shawn, but like associated kind of with him?
And this was early on in the investigation.
Very early on in the investigation.
I learned about that. I did not. I was not involved in that part of the investigation. I knew that they had found those things.
So the viewers know, just real quick, I think it was about more than 100,000 items of pornography suspected to be child pornography and bestiality found on Shawn's grandma's computer and also a hard drive located at Billie Dunn's residence. And as far as I know, nobody has ever been charged in connection to this pornography. Sure. And so why do you think that is?
I can't tell you, Erica, why they would not have charged, particularly if it was child pornography. The federal government, the United States Attorney's Office, particularly the Northern Division, Lubbock Division of the Northern District of Texas, are very, very adamant. They're all over child pornography, and they do a great job in prosecuting it. I had too many of those cases. They did a great job on back in the day, but I suspect that there was, I can't tell you for sure, but I suspect there was some relational connectivity problem of grandmother's computer, or I know that Billie was never connected to the pornography, But it was pretty hard to ignore that it was. I mean, he went to the trouble of putting it on grandmother's computer instead of. Some would say, well, okay, that's the only computer that was available, but I don't know. You know, he's going. You know, there's Game Boys or gaming programs in 2 or 3 different rooms of that house. He's technologically savvy, apparently. You know, I don't know how, but and so there may have been a possession problem. I just don't know. You'd have
So
to
when
ask
you learned about this, was Billy the one who told you? Or did you just learn about it from other...
It may have been someone in law enforcement. As I said, I was fortunate and very grateful to have some good friends that I trusted and that law enforcement officers. They trusted me, and I tried to do right by them, and they certainly did their job. We can't always share stuff, but that was something that I don't know if I learned it from law enforcement or from Billy, but it was in the course of the investigation.
We've talked about that, and then we also we mentioned the rhetoric. Erica, you did some research talking about that rhetoric and the rumors. What did you find? So much stuff involved.
So many strange rumors, from drug trafficking to witchcraft to satanic rituals to the fact that Shawn was not only watching but producing bestiality in child pornography. And as far as I can tell, you know, these are all rumors swirling on the internet.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Very interesting you bring up the drug trafficking. Well, a lawyer that I know quite well was involved in a federal drug trafficking case out of the Western District of Texas. Mm-hmm. Some cartel connections, some not, but in the same case, a conspiracy case. Many times in a federal case, you do what's called a debrief, and that's where your client goes in and talks to agents, and U.S. attorneys about what happened or what their role is or what they know. And if they're completely truthful, then the U.S. attorney will oftentimes recommend a lesser sentence. In 2 different debriefs in 2 different cases relating to 2 different offenses, part of the information that occurred, I have come to know, was we know what happened to Hailey Dunn, and here's how we can tell you. We can tell you here's what happened. One of them was that she was put on a truck and taken to Mexico. Another was that she was sold and taken to places unknown. Those allegations were exactly what you say, rumors. They obviously were proven not to be true just by virtue of where she was found. But the rumors permeated that area of Texas, from Midland, Odessa, up to Lubbock. I don't know how far south they went, but this case pulled at heartstrings. Every mother in America looks at that and says, "Oh my God, what could have been?"
And they always want to believe it was not an immediate family member, but some sort of grand plot or scheme. And Victor, correct me if I'm wrong, but you actually were kind of involved in one of these conspiracy theories. Didn't you get a letter from jail or something?
Got a letter from jail saying that she was trafficked and then taken to Odessa and was being held hostage or captive in this trailer, and they would give her drugs to subdue her, and then gave her too much one day. She overdosed, and they buried her out in West Texas.
Right. I remember you and I think, talked about that at the time.
I actually went and traveled to Odessa to try and talk to that federal inmate who sent me the letter, wasn't allowed in, and just kind of investigated over there.
Well, and I think Erica's got it right. There were a lot of rumors and a lot of people trying to cash in on this tragedy. When you're on that side of the law, you can trade things, and I think they were trying to cash in on what horrible stories to tell about somebody's baby girl. I mean, what horrible stories. But,
So one of the biggest holes in the case for me, and I don't know if anyone ever gave Billy an answer to this, is do we know when Hailey was allegedly killed, abducted, anything like that? Was Billy ever given any kind of concrete information as to what happened to Hailey?
No, I not that I'm aware of. I know I certainly was not, and she, as best I can tell, was not. There were lots of theories, lots of maybes, and with all the rumors, right? That's a real deal. You've got to comprehensive those things going on. I think that the motion to dismiss that the district attorney in Mitchell County filed is evidence that nobody really knows. You know what they had. Well, you've read the motion.
Yeah, let's talk about this for a second.
But I think nobody really knew about how, when, or where, who, what, where, when, and why. I think not.
And so, just to go chronologically, it was on June. Let me see. Confirms Hailey's. Let me see. June mother's boyfriend at the time disappeared.
Are you trying to get to Shawn's arrest?
Shawn's arrest.
That's in June 2021. Shawn was finally arrested, charged with Hailey's murder. This was probably a pretty big deal for law enforcement that had been involved in this investigation. But 2 years later, I don't know the month, in 2023, he was released from jail and the charges were dismissed. And
in August of 23
yes.
is when the motion to dismiss was filed, and I'm not sure when Judge Harrison. I'm not sure if Judge Harrison was hearing the case, but the judge hearing the case granted it sometime thereafter.
And it cites this motion to dismiss. I've read it. John's read it. It's a very clear and concise document that cites very specific reasons as to why law enforcement does not have a case against Shawn. And it also says, I want to read this quote 1 second. To be clear, prosecution views Shawn Casey Adkins as the primary suspect in the Hailey Dunn murder. However, additional work must be done before the case can proceed to a jury trial. So they're dismissing it on, I think, about 3 different terms. One, forensic evidence that led to Shawn Adkins' arrest. There was a test conducted on a pair of boots that he was wearing, and it was not an FBI-approved testing method, but this testing method determined that the soil that was found on Shawn Adkins' boots was the same type of soil that was found at the site where Hailey Dunn's remains were found.
J.B. Thomas.
J.B. Thomas.
Number 17.
And the FBI was able to go back and say, no, this isn't a very legitimate testing method we use. We don't think this will stand up in court. So that was one reason.
Well, actually, they said that it was junk science, that that the spectroscopy, I can't say it, is technically or generally is a test used for human beings. I mean, without getting too detailed, it goes in, the infrared light goes in and tests oxygenation of blood, and it's particularly used in infant brain issues. It has never been, there's some agricultural uses as to the makeup of seeds, but it's never been used for soil. And we've had soil, well, first of all, the FBI had already done the testing and said that it wasn't consistent. And this tries to put some shroud of credibility over a test that just was, it was not intended for this type of investigation. And as Ricky said, or the district attorney says, and Ricky's a very good guy. He's an honest and a fair fella. I believe what he says when he, I think it's honorable of him to have come forward and said, I think he says in his motion 6 different times, more investigation. We need further investigation.
Yeah, it does say that.
So the spectroscopy examination of soil just didn't work. It is not what the test was for. It was for primarily for a medical purpose. And the FBI said they called him on that. And we've had soil comparisons for years in criminal law. And it's like so often it's sort of like saying, Erica is consistent with John because we're both breathing and we both have, we're both human beings. Well, sure, that's all of us, And so, this soil is the same because it came from the ground and it's got X, Y, or Z in it.
Yeah.
The soil out front here would potentially be similar to that soil.
And soil aside, one of the biggest discrepancies, and I feel like why this case is really dropped, is the math does not make sense with the timeline. So coming out in the aftermath of Shawn's arrest for the first time ever was Hailey's alleged cause of death, which was a blunt force trauma to the head. Right. And this particular document says that the blunt force trauma was found to be administered at or around the time of death. It does not necessarily say this is what killed her. Right. But if you draw the conclusion that that is what killed her, then the investigators believe that would have created a very large, very bloody mess.
Sure.
And then investigators were also able to determine through cell phone pings and all of this stuff that Hailey was likely alive right before 3 p.m. on the 27th, and that Shawn likely arrived at the home in Colorado City around that time. And then the next sighting of Shawn is by David. I think we kind of went over part of the timeline later, but David comes back from his friend's house on the 27th, and it's about 4 p.m., and he's trying to get in the house. He can't get in the house. He finally has to force his way inside, and this is a very well-circulated quote. He says he runs into Shawn Adkins in the hallway between 4 and 5 p.m., and he had a deer in a headlights look. Hailey was not there. So investigators believe that if Shawn were the suspect that killed Hailey due to their cell phone data and all of this other information, then he likely would have had to have done the crime and cleaned it up and hidden her body between the hours of 3 and 5 p.m. And they think that
2 hours, right?
Yeah, 2 hours, a small window. They say it's a direct quote that it's not impossible, but it just while this is not impossible, it presents additional challenges given the preceding issues.
Eric, I can tell you, I've tried, more than 30 murder cases, maybe more than that. I've handled or been responsible for 20 additional death-eligible cases. Many of those cases deal with blunt force trauma to the head. And I think it's common knowledge. When you get cut in the head or you get hit in the head, there is an enormous amount of blood. The blood evidence, had that occurred in that 2-hour period, number one, would have been extraordinarily difficult to cover up. You would have had to have bleach or some other cleaning agent that would have done away with DNA.
Which would have been detected also?
Absolutely. I mean, or you're going to have DNA that blood spatter, which can be determined with the infrared light and the luminol, or you've seen it on CSI,
Sure.
where you close turn the lights off and everything turns up blue. There would have been blood spatter all over the walls.
It's interesting you say that, though, because in reading the documents, the third reason why Shawn was let go is it basically says that law enforcement did not thoroughly conduct the investigation. And it says that for whatever reason, and I think it's because she was not officially like a missing person or anything, but in the aftermath of Hailey's disappearance, they conducted numerous searches of her home, but they never did any sort of forensic testing like what you were describing.
And by the way, before we move on, the charges were dropped against Shawn in June 26th of 2023. He had already spent a couple of years in jail on that murder charge before they dropped the charges.
And that's Shawn had Matt Powell as a lawyer. Matt's a former district attorney in Lubbock. He is a very, very good lawyer, and it doesn't surprise me that Ricky and the state of Texas, I say Ricky, the district attorney Thompson and the state of Texas were as thorough and as careful as they were. I like to think that any good defense lawyer would have exposed these discrepancies, but Matt Powell is one of the best around, and he certainly could have done that. Another interesting thing, and not to seg into something else, but you'll notice in this, in addition to additional discovery required in the motion to dismiss 6 times, there is also 3 or 4 references to a circumstantial case or circumstantial evidence case, and that at first glance doesn't seem important, but it is. It's important because under the old law, back when I went to law school and when I was in the DA's office back forever ago, circumstantial evidence had to prove or had to establish that no other reasonable hypothesis could be responsible for the death of the person. So if there's any other reasonable hypothesis, then a jury could find somebody not guilty. Mm-hmm. Well, now it's a standard, in reasonable hypothesis, people can draw whatever conclusion they want. Now the standard is beyond a reasonable doubt, just like any other evidence. So it's a little higher standard that, beyond a reasonable doubt means all reasonable doubt. I mean, they can take your children away from you on clear and convincing evidence, but that's not even enough to convict somebody of a crime. It's got to be above that clear and convincing. Beyond a reasonable doubt is the highest standard we have in American law. And that is what circumstantial evidence has. That's the standard by which circumstantial evidence is now, and it's been several years, but I practiced over 30 years, so it's been a long time ago. But that's now the standard that the DA has to meet. And even with the anthropological evidence of the injury to the head and the designation of perimortem infliction of the injury, wherever it was, there would have been enormous blood. Car, home, enormous. And
blunt force trauma to the head is the cause of death.
Right, and blunt force trauma, you've seen it a dozen times in courtrooms, and I've done the classes, and I can tell you, when you start hitting something, blood's going to, like a head, we've all seen CSI, they do it with a watermelon, you hit it with a hammer, blood spatter goes that way and comes back on the person, and consider it 2 hours. And I'm not here to be Shawn's cheerleader. I'm not, in any respect. But that's a very, very short time frame to commit an offense, cover up that amount of blood. I've been in cases where children have been killed, and the blood was cleaned up. An investigator comes in and sprays luminol on everything, and this is back in the old days when you couldn't just use the light, but and the room lights up because there's blood spatter everywhere. The kid apparently in that case got hit on the top bunk. There's blood spatter on the roof, the ceiling, so you can get rid of the presence of blood, but unless you've got a serious cleaning agent, typically Clorox or bleach, it's the iron in the blood that shows up actually in the under luminol. It's there. And
this is with the 2 hour timeline though, and that's not definitive. That's just what law enforcement are like. Through all of our data, this is very likely the time that it could have occurred if it was Shawn, and that's very contingent on a phone call Hailey received around 3 p.m. And they're right. Assuming that Hailey is the one who answered the phone, but nobody knows that.
Absolutely, and cell towers, they can be the greatest thing for an accused, or they can be the worst. And I tried a murder case in Dallas back in 2000, and there was a cell phone call between one of the suspects and her mother down in Houston, and that call lasted like 3.5 hours. So the towers were all, met,
tower to tower.
but nobody really knew. Kind of like you're saying here, nobody really knew who was on the phone. Where was the phone? Was it on the side of the road, just pinging on the same towers? And to this day, that was 2000. To this day, nobody really knows. So we may never know exactly who was on that phone or who answered that phone, Erica.
Having said that, as we bring this podcast to a close, I don't know if you can say, but one of the last questions that we want to ask you is, what do you think happened to Hailey Dunn on the 27th, knowing everything you know, knowing the rumors, everything that we've talked about today? Not everything, because there's so much more to talk about, but what do you think happened? And that's how we'll close the show today.
Victor, I've got, the chill bumps when you asked that question, because I knew that was going to be a question here, and I have, to this point, steadfastly maintained that was not something that I was qualified to decide. And I am not going to, in any respect, attack law enforcement for the tests that maybe weren't run. Maybe a luminol test would have showed us exactly what happened. Maybe not. But I will say this. There were 2 or 3 folks that said some things that placed Shawn Adkins in a place other than where he was thought to be by law enforcement.
Cell phone pings, yeah.
There was a lady in Colorado City that says, and I don't know who it was. I referred it, and I don't know what happened to it. Maybe it fleshed out. Don't know. But what I do know is said that she saw Shawn walking across a field, not where Hailey was found, but a field in the residential area, and that would have been at a time that was inconsistent with this timeline. The law enforcement may have ferreted that out and determined that just wasn't right. I don't know, but I know that there was that, and several occurrences after the fact. Many of the same things that caused caused Billie to come to the conclusion that she came to. that made me believe, and I do believe that Shawn is the most likely person, given access, given the timeline, and to have committed the murder of Hailey. I can't say that with any certainty. I can say that based on circumstantial evidence, but to say that, one has to be able to refute everything in this motion to dismiss, and to this point, nobody can. And so what I think really doesn't matter. I mean, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know. Certainly, he was in a place where maybe he could have avoided, or helped avoid it if it was someone else. I don't know, but I can tell you that and I really applaud Ricky and the district attorney in the state for coming forward and doing the right thing. I mean, they put out here the evidence that they don't have, and so anybody that's going to speculate or that would speculate about who did it would have to do so in the face of all of the infirmities in this investigation, and I'm just not willing to do that. I mean, my suspicions are my suspicions, but the evidence doesn't seem to support that.
Let me ask this one final question on behalf of the public. Do you believe that Billie knows what happened to Hailey Dunn?
I do not. I don't bet, because I don't have money to bet, but I would bet you my next paycheck that she did not and does not.
All right, John Young, thank you for joining us on Cross Examine. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
For Adam Singleton
Thank you.
and Erica Garner, I'm Victor Sotelo, and we'll see you on the next episode.